You're listening to the Quint podcast.
After a gripping 3-hour-long hearing, the Supreme Court reserved its order on sentencing in the contempt case related to lawyer activist Prashant Bhushan's 2 tweets criticizing the judiciary. It's the same bench led by Justice Arun Mishra that had convicted Bhushan earlier on 14th August, saying that the 2 tweets in concern, one on CJI S.A. Bobde and the other about the last 4 CJI's roles in the quote-unquote destruction of democracy, had amounted to criminal contempt. If you remember, although they had not specified the penalty for this charge, on 20th August, the 3-judge bench had given him a few days to rethink his statements and come back with an apology saying that they'll consider whether or not they want to be lenient with their penalties only after Bhushan submits an apology. Even though in his response, Bhushan had clearly maintained both at the hearing and also in his supplementary affidavit filed on 24th August that he doesn't seek mercy and stands by his bona fide opinions. And that's where the latest hearings took off from. On the August 25th hearing, in a lot of back and forth, even as the outgoing judge Arun Mishra reiterated demands for an unconditional apology, the Attorney General of India, K.K. Venugopal, who was assisting the court, continued to bat for Prashant Bhushan, urging the apex court to show statesmanship and let Bhushan off with a warning. But irrespective of what penalty the court ultimately decides for Bhushan, what does this case mean for the freedom of speech in India? And what potential legacy can it leave behind for the judiciary? You're tuned in to The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline-making news for you. And I'm your host, Shalburi. Just to clarify, 2 contempt hearings against Prashant Bhushan were scheduled on the same day. One was an 11-year-old contempt case that was brought up recently over Bhushan's interview to Tehelka magazine in the year 2009, in which he had made allegations of corruption in the Supreme Court and had said that half of the previous 16 CJIs were corrupt. That case came up again recently during the hearing of the suo motu contempt case against Bhushan over his tweets about the judiciary. In the hearing, as Bhushan's lawyer Rajiv Dhawan argued that the questions in reference to corruption by judges, whether or not it amounts to contempt, should be examined by a constitution bench. Justice Mishra said that he's short of time since his demitting office soon on September 3rd, and that's why it would be appropriate for the matter to be considered by another bench on 10 September. So that was the older case against Bhushan, but what really captivated the judicial fraternity and rights activists is the recent case against him, which has to do with his tweets. Unlike the older case, this was a suo motu petition taken up by the court that held Bhushan guilty of scandalizing the court. In the last sentence hearing, as we know, Bhushan was given time to apologize, but he held his ground and said an apology was out of question since an insincere apology or a retraction would be contemptuous of his conscience and of an institution that he held in highest esteem. While commending his carefully worded justification on his comments, N. Ram, a veteran journalist and the director of the Hindu publishing group, who had also filed a petition along with Bhushan to challenge the constitutionality of provisions of the Contempt of Courts Act, said that everyone knew that Bhushan was not going to apologize.
And everyone knew. There's not a single person I've talked to who expected Prashant Bhushan to apologize because they know all he has done. And I think it's, the spirit of this, as well as the very carefully worded draftsmanship, I think has to be studied and admired, which I do. So I think it shouldn't be seen as just a refusal, I think, as some of the headlines I've seen in the online media have made it out to be. Of course, he will not apologize. That's clear enough. It's not an apology, but it is both a principled and a constructive response to what the Supreme Court has demanded or indicated in its order, where he quotes this saying, we are given time to the contemner to submit unconditional apology if he so desires. There's neither an apology nor an unconditional apology, but it certainly is a constructive and principled response to the issue.
But yet again, in the latest hearing, after Dhawan argued that the demand to submit an unconditional apology was an quote-unquote exercise of coercion, Justice Mishra expounded on the importance of an apology over some emotional statements and asked, and I'm quoting his observations from the hearing, quote, "Tell us what is wrong in the word apology. What is wrong in seeking apology? Will that be reflection of guilt?" End quote. Dhawan said that the judges were only focusing on what Bhushan had said about not apologizing, but his statements needed to be read in toto, including the bit where he talks about his respect for the court. He also said that responsible criticism was essential to the functioning of the court. And as far as the sentencing goes, Dhawan urged the court to not make Bhushan a quote-unquote martyr by imposing a punishment and suggested that in its order the court can express its disagreement with Bhushan's comments and urge him to exercise restraint in his criticisms. Now, what was really interesting in the previous hearing as well as the recent hearing was the Attorney General K.K. Venugopal's stand on the matter. That's something we talked about in a previous episode on the hearing from 20th August as well. In the last hearing, the Attorney General had implored the bench to forgive Bhushan and not sentence him, arguing that several retired judges had made similar comments like Bhushan's as well about corruption in the judiciary and that such statements should be viewed as requests for self-improvement in the administration of justice. In the latest hearing, when the bench sought the AG's advice, Venugopal urged them to take a compassionate view and display statesmanship. And he said, and I'm quoting him, quote, "I think Bhushan should withdraw all statements in entirety and express regret. The court should let him off if he apologizes. He expressed regret, and then when I read it, I thought we should not proceed with contempt, and I withdrew the same because he expressed regret. It'll be a great service if your lordships take a compassionate view and leave it there." End quote. Venugopal's stand on the matter as a constitutional figure has also drawn a lot of appreciation. This is what Swaraj Party leader Yogendra Yadav said about him.
I was pleasantly surprised. I must salute Mr. Venugopal, if only because I was so annoyed with his silence in the past. Here is remember, Attorney General is not an advocate for the government. Attorney General is a constitutional position. Right. Attorney General can stand up in the court and say, "Me lord, you are not doing something right." That's his constitutional duty. Right. So I am glad that belatedly Mr. Venugopal stood up. For once I felt, okay, there is an Attorney General in this country.
Recently, we know that Venugopal had also refused to initiate a contempt plea against actress Swara Bhaskar. And Enram believes that Venugopal's stand on both Ms. Bhaskar's and Mr. Bhushan's matters also reflects the fact that the Supreme Court is completely wrong in taking up this contempt case against Bhushan.
It's this whole action is, I think, not only unusual, but it's completely wrong. There's no doubt about that. What the Supreme Court has done unto itself, I would say. And that was reflected in what the Attorney General said. The Attorney General's position is very clear and made even clearer in another case involving Swara Bhaskar, where I think he spelled out the reasons why this is perfectly, it doesn't invite contempt, criminal contempt at all. Because obviously the Attorney General, I've known the Attorney General for India, Mr. K.K. Venugopal, for close to half a century, and admire him. And it is clear that he doesn't want the Supreme Court to be involved in a series of criminal contempt actions, which will only lower the dignity and the image of the court.
Now, the court has reserved its judgment and we don't know what it will be, but this case has certainly created a lot of noise. Even as former judges are backing Bhushan on this case has put the focus on freedom of speech and whether or not the right to dissent impinges on the functioning of the court. And Mr. N. Ram says that this case is a boost to the cause of free speech thanks to the awareness that it's created about the concept of contempt.
So I think this will be, at the end of the day, I'm sure this will be a boost to the cause of free speech. But we'll watch it, what happens now. Because I think awareness is much greater today about this. And the judiciary becomes intolerant of criticism or claims any absolute powers or sky-high powers to punish for contempt of itself. Let's remember the problem with contempt is you are judges in your own cause. There's no appeal other than a review if it's the Supreme Court. And there's no procedure for appeal. there's just a possibility of review, and the same bench will hear it. In this case, the review may come after Justice Arun Mishra retires, if it comes to that. So I think this is going to, as I said, be a boost for the cause of free speech, simply because of the awareness, the increase in awareness. Lots more people have come to hear about it. And secondly, the inspiring example set by Prashant. He's not out to just fight regardless, just to create noise or sensationalize the issue. He's been very, very constructive. At the same time, principled. Prashant Bhushan is perfectly willing to face any punishment that is meted out to him. But I do hope that wisdom will prevail and the attitude of the Supreme Court will mellow. And Prashant Bhushan doesn't need any sympathy. Prashant Bhushan needs support because he's taken up the right cause.
If you like listening to this episode, please subscribe to the Big Story playlist for episodic updates. We're live on Apple, Google Podcast, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website and check out the podcast section. For any feedback, shoot an email to podcasts@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts.